I was very high on the Minnesota Timberwolves this year. I was expecting them to be, at the very least, a borderline playoff team. And they have failed to meet that expectation that I had for them by quite a large margin, with them being one of the worst teams in the league. They have been real bad for a variety of reasons, and the biggest one, I think, speaks to a problem that has existed with the Timberwolves pretty much forever. So let's talk about the Timberwolves, their bad luck, their many internal issues, and overall just why that franchise is a complete disaster. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. The first issue of many with this team, and one of the biggest, has to be injuries, of course. Cat has missed 21 games because of both injury as well as him being out with the virus. D'Angelo Russell has missed 30 games, and because of a suspension for some wild off of the court shit, Malik Beasley has missed 13 games and will miss a couple more. And I think it's rather easy to put a lot of their failures on those injuries. And as high as I am on the Timberwolves, it's kind of my natural instinct to say, hey, this is the biggest problem. And it probably is the biggest problem. We have only seen Cat and D'Lo play together for about 5 games. But I think focusing entirely on the injuries is ignoring a part of the biggest problem with this team that had, like I said, has existed for a long time, and we'll get to it. I think it is oversimplifying things to just blame this entire thing on injuries. See, sure, Cat not missing like 20 games would definitely make a difference. Let's say he plays those 20 games and they win half of them, which is being real generous based on the track record of that team, but let's just say he plays half, they win 10. What does that mean now? Well, now their record would be 22-38, which means they'd be tied for the 11th seed. So still, they'd be disappointing. And like I said, them winning 10 games out of 21 that Cat has missed would be relatively generous, and with Cat having so many injury issues in the past, I don't know that you can just be like blaming it on the injuries when it seems like this happens every year. But another thing that makes the blaming it all on injuries thing more complicated is that the Wolves have had players break out in the absence of other players being injured, and I did not factor that breakout in me thinking this team would be good. Like Jalen Noel, in the absence of Malik Beasley, has been a very good three-point shooter in creating some offense for himself, and Jaden McDaniels has been awesome for the Timberwolves this year, and I knew basically nothing about him going into this year, so I did not factor those guys in as a reason why I thought they'd be a borderline playoff team. So, in spite of injury, you would think these guys stepping up would elevate the team to some degree, and I think they have, but when those players would be back from injury, that elevation would disappear, so I don't think the difference from having those guys back would be as significant as some might make it seem. Also, speaking of expectations, Anthony Edwards has kind of been exactly what I expected, just based on what people were saying about him going into the draft. I expected him to have issues with shot selection and overshooting and things like that, but also to be a pretty good player who would have a lot of good games, and he has basically been exactly that. Injuries, I don't think, are the only major problem with this team, because of course another thing to mention, though it's not my main point, is defense. Now, this Timberwolves team was not expected to be great defensively at all, but you add on to it that their offense has been subpar because of injuries and because of a bigger issue, that is going to make the bad defense even worse. Jaden McDaniels has been awesome defensively and makes up for a lot of the weaknesses of Cat, but he cannot carry the defense in total as a rookie. And even if they were healthy, Cat and D'Angelo Russell just are not it defensively. Cat is around average, which I don't think people give him that credit because he is not a bad defensive player, but you really want to have a good defensive player as your 5, and the Timberwolves don't have that. and D'Angelo Russell is a horrible defensive player. Also, just in general, as like a sidebar, people who are expecting D'Lo to just save the day in Minnesota, I really think you're overrating D'Lo quite a bit. But the more systemic thing that exists with the Timberwolves that, like I said, has existed for a while that concerns me is that their issue is not a lack of talent, because they have the talent on the roster this year. Of course, it could be better with health, like I've said a billion times at this point, but still, they have talent on the team. That's for damn sure. The issue is not that they have bad players. The issue is that the good players they have do not play like a team. This is a collection of talented basketball players who can all be good in their own right, but aren't really good in a mix together. They either do not fit well, or they do not want to fit well. Now, I will say this has been a bit better since the new coach has been hired. I don't remember what his name is, but I looked into it, and Cat has been averaging more assists and playmaking more since he has taken the reins. And he's also been getting more shots. I have been complaining in my post-game recaps every time I talk about the Timberwolves that, like, damn it, can you get the generational scoring talent the ball, that being Karl-Anthony Towns, and half the time Anthony Edwards or Malik Beasley or sometimes D'Angelo Russell shoot the ball more than him. And it's very, very frustrating because Cat is the most talented offensive player on the team by a country mile. But in general, this team has the same issue as the Clippers do, just obviously on a smaller scale. That issue being, while yes, there is talent here, the talent does not work together as a cohesive unit. So when you run into a team like the Nuggets for the Clippers that do run cohesively, you're going to see a drastic difference even if you are a more talented team. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your talent does not work together, then it's not going to mean much. Another great example of this on the opposite end of the spectrum is like the 2017 Golden State Warriors. The reason why the Warriors were so ridiculous was not just that they had that talent, but how seamlessly that talent fitted together. The way the Timberwolves are right now is talented players taking turns and not looking out for each other and not trying to get the best shot available, trying to get their own shot, things like that. I'm not suggesting the players on this team are necessarily selfish, but they don't play together. And in general, like I said, I believe this is a long issue that's existed with the Timberwolves. Is there a time where the Timberwolves have really worked really well as a team? Because I can't think of a time. Back when it was Kevin Love, they were not the most talented team in the league, but they did have some decent enough talent that you'd think with a player of the caliber of Minnesota Kevin Love, you'd at least be able to string together more than 35 wins. Before that, when it was Kevin Garnett, those teams did not like functions like flawlessly, like they were just some great cohesive unit. It was really just a Kevin Garnett carry job, to be honest. I don't know if it's management, I don't know if it's coaching, I don't know if it's just some long-term culture issue, but there is something wrong in Minnesota that kind of prevents talent from reaching its potential at all. This issue runs so deep looking throughout their entire history that I actually begin to wonder if the team is cursed. And believe me, I am the least what's the word? What's the word for if you're a crazy person who thinks if you look at a mirror the wrong way, it means you're gonna die? Do you know what I'm talking about? What's the word I'm looking for? like you believe in like seeing a black cat as bad luck or whatever the fuck it is. I can't remember it right now. Superstitious. The word is superstitious. I'm not superstitious at all, but I sometimes wonder if the Timberwolves are cursed. Like in Locker Room the other day, we were talking about the Timberwolves, and some guy in there said, like, the Timberwolves could have LeBron, Steph, and Jokic, and they'd still find a way to miss the playoffs. And, like, that's kind of spelling it out right there. They can have the talent, but there's just something wrong there that's not letting it work. And while I basically refuse to be critical, like at all, of Karl-Anthony Towns based on what's happened to him in his life, I will say that I just think the team needs leadership. I don't think it's wrong for Cat to not be the best leader in the world because he's still an incredible and underrated offensive talent. But I think the 1 year that we've seen them make the playoffs in my time as a fan and pretty much almost all of their history was with Jimmy Butler. Like, since Kevin Garnett, the Timberwolves had not made the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler got them there because he's an incredible leader and a guy who changes the culture. The reason why the Wolves traded for Butler on top of Tom Thibodeau's obsession with former Bulls players was that culture that he would bring, that impact that he would bring. Butler is the kind of dominating personality that can really shift an entire franchise over, even if his talent itself is not that of like a top 10 player. His mentality can put him in that category because of how impactful he can be with that culture shift he can bring. Something like that is what this Timberwolves team needs rather badly. Leadership, whether it be from coaching or from some player coming to the team. Whatever it may be, that's what this team needs, and I don't think they have it. And I don't know that they have ever really had it since Kevin Garnett, because Kevin Love had the same issue when he was in Minnesota, not really a leader, even if he was an incredible talent. So that's the Timberwolves issue, I suppose, the reason why they're cursed. This video kind of became a ramble, and I don't know what the entire point of it was. It was a poor structure and not very well made, but I guess this being a video about the Timberwolves, that's right in line with how it should be. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and keep the outro music.